You know, there are many monasteries across Spain. This particular monastery was built in 1301 by Alonso Pérez de Guzmán. He was a Spanish nobleman from up north, whose father was nobility, his mother was a commoner. So to prove his noble blood, he joined the military to fight against the Moorish people of the south in the late 1300s. As he grew close to death and knew he'd probably wind up in purgatory after he died, according to the teachings of the church in Spain at that time. So he had a monastery built with the idea that monks would pray for the souls of him and his wife to get them through eternity. The monastery was named for a famous man in the late 500s, early 600s named Isidoro of Seville, who was known for starting the very first seminaries across southern Spain, as well as public lending libraries, collection of books of known information of the time called encyclopedias. This monastery is significant in the 16th century because of what happened here as far as the Spanish Reformation. At that time, the monks were curious about the truth of God and had heard that there was an opportunity to believe through the grace of God and faith completely in Christ's finished work on the cross. So many of the monks were transformed. They were born again, but they had no Bible in Spanish. Consequently, during that time, they decided to begin the translation of the Bible right in this very monastery into Spanish for the first time in history. But because of the Spanish Inquisition being close by, they knew their efforts might be destroyed. So they fled for their lives in 1557, and 12 monks escaped with the beginnings of the translation to Geneva, Switzerland. After a year in Geneva, they heard that Queen Elizabeth of London invited all European Protestant refugees to come to England for safety. So they moved there, became part of the universities of Oxford and Cambridge, continued the translation, which they finished in 1569. After all the copies of the Spanish Bible were distributed, some years later in 1588, one of the translators said, if God one day would have mercy on Seville, it would only be right that this monastery would become a university chiefly dedicated to the study of theology. Greater things than this God has done in our days. So here we are, 500 years later, praying that a group of international people would come together with the Spanish Protestant movement, only half of 1% of the population of Spain, to recover this monastery. In all honesty, this project of obtaining this monastery, restoring all these buildings, is way beyond a small team like we have now. We're telling you these things so that you would come together and join and be part of this great international effort to see these buildings recovered, restored, and put into place as a center of theological education, a place to strategize for evangelism, and also to plant churches throughout Spain, Southern Europe, and North Africa. Come join us and be part of this great monastery recovery project.